In today's episode of the podcast, I'm going to be talking about website design process most business owners get wrong. I have been lucky to work with small businesses that have had just like 50-page websites and have been involved in the design of the website, working directly with the small business owners before they then hire a designer. I even worked helping them recruit a designer and a web development person. And these businesses have been successful because I was involved in the initial phase of the design process. One of the mistakes most business owners make is they don't understand that a website design needs a lot of skills. You need SEO skills, Google Ads skills, UX skills, what do you call it again? Content skills, analytics skills. All the skills need to be factored in before you design a website. If you fail to put the skills into play, you're going to design a website that is not fit for purpose. Let me talk at a high level the three mistakes that business owners make. First, they design a website before they have a defined strategy. Most businesses design their website and then they start creating their Google Ads, SEO, and other strategies. And those, especially SEO strategies, would then try to fix the problem that was created from the web development agency. And the reason is because most web development agencies don't have all the skills that you need to design an effective website. Now, let me give you a bit of a background about me. I have been involved in website design projects of website as large as 400,000 page websites, international websites. So when we're working with these international companies, there's a lot of skills involved. You have a UX department, you have an SEO department, you have a content department, you have a usability testing facility. All these things is what goes into your large website like your Amazon, your Netflix, your eBay. They're not just designed by one person. There are multiple skills involved. And this is a problem when it comes to small businesses. You cannot afford the level and the quality of the skills that those large organizations have. But you can solve that problem by working with a T-shaped marketing consultant like myself that has experience in SEO, UX, analytics, CRO, and Google Ads. That is just me telling you that if you need to design your website as a small business owner, you can avoid these mistakes by working with me. The number two mistakes most small business owners make when they're designing a website is they design the website based on their perspective, on their opinion, not the opinion of the target audience. And the reason why they do this is because they do not have access to that target audience. As I said, larger organizations that I've worked with have access to a usability testing facility where the website, before it's actually designed, before it actually goes live, we put customers, target audience, to test the website, to interact with the website, and make sure that all the information and everything is designed properly before it goes live. A small business owner does not have access to that level of sophistication. But there's certain things that you can do as a small business owner before your website goes live. I'm going to talk about it later in the podcast. So another thing I want you to understand as a small business owner is most of the time when you design your website, you have this mindset of a set it and forget it approach where you design it and you just leave the website and you don't touch it again for the next 2-3 years. Technology, customers, platforms are always evolving. And if your website doesn't evolve, doesn't get updated, doesn't get refreshed, you are going to waste your marketing budget. The reason why your website is important is you have organizations that create a website and they spend about £100,000 or $100,000 every month on it. And they complain that, oh, we're not getting results from marketing, without ever analyzing the foundation of where the money they're spending on marketing goes to. It's a website that has not been touched in the last 2 years, in the last 3 years. That is why you need to consider a website design, a new website, to make sure that your website works. So let me re-emphasize the skills that you need for a website. You need someone that has an understanding and appreciation of brand. You need someone that understands SEO, UI and UX design, Google Ads, a content person, an analytics person, an email marketing person, and a CRO person. So think about this as a business owner. When you design your website, were all the skills part of the stakeholders that designed your website? 9 out of 10 times, they are not. That is one mistake that you've made. So now let me talk about the psychology that makes a website convert. So if you're a business owner, I want you to listen to this and think about your website if you already have an existing website. And if you're planning to design a new website, I also want you to think about this. The first psychology you need to consider whenever you're designing a website is fewer choices, faster decision. That's something called the Hicks law. The more option you give a visitor, the longer it takes them to decide. That's what this law talks about. And the more likely that they're going to do nothing. That is why landing pages with single call to action consistently outperform pages with competing sections. What this law is talking about is, as a business owner, you need to understand when someone gets to your website or a landing page, they want to take a particular action. If it's an e-commerce website, they want to buy something. If it's a lead generation website, they want to fill a form, or they want to request a callback, or they want to request a demo. How long does it take for them when they get to your homepage to completing that task to get to the thank you page? How long does it take for them, if they just know about your brand, for them to search on Google or type your website URL directly and finish that task? The longer it takes, the lesser your website will convert. That is the first psychology of a high converting website. The second psychology is called the Fitts law. Size and position determines click. So what this means is the size of your call to action and the position of your call to action in your website determines the success of your marketing. I've seen large organizations that you have the content design team arguing with the conversion rate optimization team about the importance of having a call to action button above the fold. The easy accessibility of people to click on that important call to action button on your homepage, your product page, determines the success of your websites, determines the sales and the lead generation capability of your website. Then another psychology of a high converting website that you need to pay attention to as a business owner is how you group information on your websites. Think about this as the way people congregate in the society, in the world. You have people from similar ethnicity grouping and live in the same area. Think about that when you're creating a website. The information structure on your website should be grouped together, because people read information in clusters. The better the way you cluster your information, the better you get conversion. And take, for example, on the homepage, you have your heading, you have your subheading, then you should have your CTA button. Those are the things you need to think about. And if your website is also text heavy, I want you to understand as a business owner that people scan and consume information based on how you design your website. A text-heavy website, people will scan the desktop in an F shape. They go from left to right, they come down to the side, and then they go left to right again. So the important information needs to be at top, above the fold on your website. That's why it's important for you to make sure that content is structured that way. Another thing is, if your website has more visuals and less text, then people will scan it in a Z format. These are not my opinion. These are based on 10, 20 years of usability testing, usability research by organizations such as Nielsen Norman Group. So these are actually tried and tested facts that I'm sharing with you. So now let me talk about the 7 phases and the 7 steps of a website design process. Small businesses make the mistake of just handing over a brief to a web development agency, and the agency would go and design the website. They'll bring the first review. They ask you to review it. You look at it. You make some changes. They bring a second one. By the third one, it's approved. You have a website. That is a recipe for disaster. So if you're a small business owner and your website design process was just you and an agency, even if the agencies claim they have SEO background, they tell you everything you want to hear, there's a high likelihood that if you did not go through the 7 stages of a website design, your website is not designed to convert. Later on in the section in this podcast, I'm going to be talking about the structure of a high converting website. But let me talk about the phases you need to go through. Before you start any website design process, you first need to understand who your target personas are. Not who your target audience is, who your target personas are. I have worked with large organizations, I've worked with CEOs. Now I'm focused on small business owners. Those are my target audience. This is intentional. And I redesigned my website recently purely based on that target audience. Again, I'm different to you. I use Claude to design my website. That is another conversation. But if you are a small business owner and you're looking to hire an agency, you first need to define your marketing strategy. I have a podcast that I talked about marketing audit. I talked about marketing strategy template. Go and listen to that episode and learn and even download the template. Design your marketing strategy before you design your website, before you talk to your agency. Again, you also want to have a discovery session, or you can also do that yourself. Make sure you look at all the competition in your niche. If you're a local business, look at all the competitors that you have locally. If you're a dentist, a pharmacist, if you're a law firm, look at your competitor. If it's a national competitor or regional competitor, look through their website, get an understanding of the website structure, the content, the layout before you design your website. This information will help your thinking, but also be aware that your competition might have a rubbish website. So in some instances, you might not learn anything from them. Have that in mind. So don't copy them because they're leading the space, but their website could be really, really terrible. And something else could be working for them. They could have a good social media presence that is actually getting them all the sales that they are getting. So when you're designing a website as a business owner, I want you to use paper. That's the cheapest way to avoid spending too much money with the agency. What I mean by using paper is just get 4-5 pieces of papers. Start with your homepage. Draw what you think your homepage should be. You don't have to have artistic excellence to draw this. Just draw a box. Just label where you want the logo to be, your homepage logo, and label what you want to be in the navigation. Just draw the sections that are important. Just design and write everything how you want the content to be structured on a piece of paper. Do your homepage first. But when you're doing your homepage, always have the intention that your navigation should lead to all your services or your product. And within the homepage, you should have links and kind of sections that talk about what is in the navigation within the homepage. Everything needs to link deeper. You need to think of the end in mind. You're designing your homepage with the mind of what the final conversion is going to be. That is what I want you to think about as a business owner. That's your homepage done. Take another sheet of paper, draw out your product or service page. In some instances, you have a category page. If you have like subsections, like how your services are divided into sections. If you have that category drop down, design the category page and then start designing the service and then the product pages, all on a sheet of paper. So when you're having that conversation with your agency, that is what you need to hand over to them as part of the brief. You need to think about the content, how the content will be structured inside every page so you have that nailed down. The problem I see with most organizations is the agency will design a website. They will not have a content on it. They will have something called Lorem Ipsum. That's like gibberish on it. The content is an afterthought of the website. So, but first you need to start with what content do you want the homepage? What content do you want? And the website needs to be designed with the content in mind, not the other way around. So when you hand this over to your agency as a business owner, listen to me, you're not an expert. So I'm trying to help you speak the language. When you start using this language to your web development agency, they'll take you seriously. They're like, oh, this guy knows, or this lady knows what he's talking about or what she's talking about. Then request for them to give you a wireframe based on the paper that you've given them. That wireframe is basically bringing to life that gibberish that you designed on the paper. They'll bring it to life. Then ask them to create an interactive prototype before they design the website. That prototype is like a mock-up design, not an actual website. That will give you a visual and an understanding of what the website should look like. That is when you then bring in your brand, your logo, your colors. Now your website is beginning to come to life, but is not actually designed yet. So you can still make changes. If you're making changes based on a website that has been designed by the agency, they're going to charge you more. But if you're making changes on a prototype, on a Figma prototype, they won't charge you as much. It's easier. Once everything has been approved, that prototype in larger organizations that I've worked in, that's the prototype that we do usability testing on. So as a small business owner, you can get maybe your partner, your neighbor, your friends, family and friends. You can ask them to look at the prototype and get their thoughts on it. Mind you, they're not your target audience, but you're going to tell them to do things on that prototype. You could say, oh, this is the prototype of my website. I want you to go and book an appointment using this prototype. They'll go. You can see the mistakes they're making. You can even have like a screen record of how they interact. Those are the feedbacks that you're going to give to your agency to make those changes. The reason why I'm saying this is because in large multinational organizations that can spend up to 2, 3, 4 million on a website redesign, that is the process that they follow. Your Amazons, your LinkedIn, your Twitter, and all those big, large multinational organizations, they do something called usability testing. That means testing the website with a user before it goes live. That's why I said you need to do a prototype. So once that prototype has been done and you're happy with everything, then your agency can then design the website. That's the design phase. And after they designed it, they'll first test it to make sure everything is working. They need to check it that is mobile responsive, that is loading fast, and they need to do all these things before they design it. And once they design it, as I mentioned earlier on, your mindset as a business owner, treat your website like a car. It needs an MOT every year. So you need to do like an optimization audit, a conversion audit, a navigational audit, an audit of the website, a refresh to make sure that everything is working, where you need to change the engine oil, where you need to tweak, change tires and everything. The same mindset is what I want you to have as a business owner when it comes to your website. So now let me talk to you about the structure of a high converting website. I'm going to talk about this in 6 sections: above the fold content, problem solution blocks, social proof, service clarity, FAQ section, and then secondary call to action. Then after that, I'm going to talk to you about statistics that you need to pay attention to as a small business owner to avoid the mistakes that most make on websites. So let's start with above the fold content. As a small business owner, I want you to think about when you type URL or a website address, when you land on that website, the first thing you see before scrolling or interacting with the website, that is called above the fold content. The first thing you see. So as a business owner, you want to make sure that the heading of that above the fold content, it has a heading. You'd be surprised that some websites, when you land on it, the above the fold content is just images, no text, or just scanty text. That is a conversion killer. So if you want a high converting website, you need to make sure that the above the fold content has a value proposition, that's a heading, a subheading, and then the call to action, the button that someone will click to download a form, to fill a form, to request a call back, to buy something. That call to action is visible before anybody scrolls anything. That is important. And you also want to make sure that your brand is doing the talking at your homepage, because you see a lot of organizations where, for example, I go into a website sometimes and I don't know what the organization does. And I'm talking about huge organizations sometimes. I have to go to the About Us page, scan and click and go around the website. I'm like, what do these people do? That should not be your website. The first question your homepage above the fold content needs to answer is, what problem do you exist to solve? The content should answer that question. I'm not saying the content should ask that question. It should answer straight away in clear format. This is what we do and this is what you would get. And then the next thing on the high converting website is the problem and solution block. You know, I mentioned that above the fold, you need to make sure that you have your value proposition communicated. Then all the content on that page needs to highlight the problem that the person has, the person coming to your website, and then it needs to highlight the solution that you offer. You need to do a good job naming the problem and showing the customers that you understand their problem through the content on your website. You can use different types of content. There's text, image, and videos. 3 content types. Most organizations focus on text alone. But if you look at all platforms online now, TikTok, Instagram, video is really, really a strong content type. But most organizations are still caught up in the Stone Age when it comes to just text-only content. I'm going to talk about the importance of video down later on in the podcast. So then another thing you need to pay attention is social proof. You need to make sure that your website is designed with testimonials content there. And again, testimonials can be text. It can be actual videos of your customers talking about the experience. These are the things that increase conversion on your e-commerce, lead generation, or even content websites. And we all know about AI, that AI is a tool that people use to search now. AI engines love frequently asked question content clusters. What I mean here is when someone gets on your website, before they buy, they will most likely have questions. They won't be convinced fully. You need to continuously convince them and answer the question. It's like you're trying to date a woman. She's going to have questions, or if you're trying to date a man or whatever, however you roll. But before they agree to fully dating you, there'll be questions that they would have. That's why you take them on dates and you answer all those questions, and when they're then fully convinced, then they start a relationship with you. The same principle applies to a website. You need to make sure that based on your interaction with your customers, if you already have interacted with customers in the past, try and identify all the questions that they normally ask you and put those questions on your website and answer those questions as naturally and honestly as you can. 2 things is going to happen. It's going to increase the conversion when people land on your website's pages. It's also going to be things that AI engines will take to show to name and to mention your brand in AI search when people are using AI tool. That is really important. And then there's a secondary call to action. You remember that I said above the fold, you should have call to action there. When people scroll down deep into your website, you do not expect them to scroll back up to make an action. You need to make sure that there is a secondary call to action down below. So now let me tell you about some statistics to show why you should not, as a business owner, make this mistake when you're designing your website. A website that is fully optimized for conversion would convert as high as 2.3%. That's the whole website as a whole. But if you have a website that has Google Ads designed in mind, what I mean by this is I was recently looking at a law firm's website, and that law firm did not have a dedicated landing page for Google Ads. And the reason why this is a problem is because pages that are designed specifically for Google Ads do not normally have a navigation bar. Earlier on, I talked about the importance of video content. A research by Unbounce, which is a company that does a lot of landing page design over the years, they did a research and they found that pages with videos convert 80% higher than pages that don't have a video. So I want you as a business owner to look at your website. Do you have just text-heavy content? That means your website is not actually doing what it should. That means your website has more potential that you've not tapped into. Again, the research by Unbounce shows that websites that add videos to the landing page convert 80% better. Now, let's now talk about Google Ads. Earlier on, I said when you're designing a website, you need all these important skills involved. Sometimes you don't have Google Ads skills. The Google Ads skills will help you understand that you need a dedicated landing page. Again, research by HubSpot this time around shows that pages that remove their navigation, pages that are designed specifically for Google Ads, convert between 10 to 50% more than pages that use generic for their landing page. What I'm trying to say here is when you use a generic SEO page for your Google Ads, you're wasting money. All these benchmarks that I'm talking about is important because as a business owner, you must have made a mistake and you must have got your website design wrong because you've not factored in all the skills. What makes me confident that you've most likely made that mistake is because the only people that can afford all the skills that a good website needs are the large organization, because you need more than 8 skills to design a high performing website. But there's a catch to this. You can hire someone that has experience of working in those large environments and has all the skills that you need to help you optimize your existing website. It's not every time that you need to redesign your website. I've worked with small business owners where I work with them, we tweaked their homepage, tweaked their product pages. It's like a refresh. It's like an MOT for your website. So if you're a small business owner and you know deep in your heart that you've designed your website and you've not touched it in over 12 months, in over 2 years, and you know that your website could do better, my name is Femi Olajiga. You can book a website audit with me, book a 30-minute session. You can find a link to book me in the show notes, and I will love to help you go through the structure of your website to make sure that everything is high converting. Make sure that all the psychology that makes a website convert is implemented on your website. Again, my name is Femi Olajiga. I'm a marketing consultant and an agency owner. Connect with me on LinkedIn and book a session with the link in the show notes and the description. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, share, and subscribe. If you're watching this on podcast platform, you can give me a 5-star rating. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you in the next episode.